kind of one of those things where you've done it now, so it doesn't become it's less, how can I put it? You worry about it less if you prefer to do it again. Right,
Yeah.
but it's just one of those things. It's like, listen, you've got
Yeah.
to.
The more you do it, the more you just get used to it, I think, after a while. First video, I was like, damn. When I look back at my first video, I think Afsa used babbling on. There was no structure. I should have had points. But now I'm like, I'm learning as I go, I guess. So,
But do you know what it is? Yeah, I think sometimes, like with certain things, yeah, like you can only it's on you can only talk from, like, you can't have it scripted. Obviously, like with your videos,
mm,
there's some things you have planned, but when you're
mm,
talking about something like that, like, of
mm,
that nature, you can't. It's just you're just talking from experience, and so like you already kind of have an advantage because what you say is valuable. Like, I'm not saying like if you're talking about something that you are sort of like maybe paid to talk about, that you have no sort of
mm,
connection to, or no kind of, do you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you don't really care about the subject, then I think you can kind of see that. Unless you're
yeah,
just really good at just talk, you know what I mean? That's different. That's a different
yeah,
story. But when it's something of this nature, even when we talk about grief, it's not, most of the times it's not really scripted.
Yeah,
yeah,
It's just like,
it's all from experience, and obviously we're
mm,
passionate about this because
yeah.
we
So
want
it's
to,
like,
you know.
yeah,
I mean, we might say a lot, like over time. There's a lot of things we might say
mm,
that, yeah, it just sounds a bit. But yeah, other than that, it's just, yeah, you can't. Yeah, a bit of structure is good, but like sometimes, like when you just think, oh yeah, okay, I need to make sure, like, because that's why we've this is gonna get cut anyway, but
oh, we've recorded.
yeah, no, this is just, yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know it started.
we're breaking nice, we're breaking nice,
All
icebreaker.
right.
we're breaking nice in it, but like,
I had no idea. You shouldn't have told me.
yeah, but seeing as we, yeah, you know stuff, but welcome to the podcast,
Thank
Afsa.
you.
Welcome to
Um,
Thinking Out Loud.
yeah,
Thank
welcome to Thinking Out Loud,
you.
Yep.
everyone. Another episode back in the studio. Myself, Jermaine, Ben, as you heard, Afsa. I think it's best to add a trigger warning just for those listening and watching as well, that today's topic is going to be about domestic abuse. So thank you, Afsa, for agreeing to come on
Yep.
Thank you for
to
having
talk
me,
Welcome on
about
the
guys.
that.
show. Yep.
But like I was saying before, like with that, your domestic abuse, it's your story. So like, even though like you said, like you were a bit like nervous about it, but I think people can just resonate with just the honesty, man. Like,
Mm,
because when I watched it, I was like, wow, this is. I know it's not an uncommon thing, but I don't know. Like I said, I just don't really hear a lot of it from like, we want to say our community. Like, do you know what I
mm,
mean? It's just often, but that's the thing though. A lot of it is kind of I won't say a taboo, but it's hard to kind of talk about,
mm,
because a lot of the time with these things is maybe people mask it well. People are under like what's the word for it? Like, people in it are, it's fear because we don't know how
mm.
that abuser might have coerced them to, like, if you talk or tell anyone about this, then it's that fear, and that's the
Yeah,
sad thing, is that people can't even have no outlet to talk about it, or have no people to reach to, not even no support.
yeah.
Do you mean that's the hard thing, and I think when people look at, oh, why people always like, I know when I've kind of seen like film, because I remember the other day I was talking about this, the series, that the not
Oh,
the
yeah.
series, the it was like a BBC documentary,
Oh, yeah.
murdered by
Goodbye.
my
Was it boyfriend
yeah,
or something?
boyfriend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
remember that?
So like, I was watching that, it was interesting because it was based on a true story, and I was watching that and I was just like seeing how it unfolded. So she met this guy,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, I'm not saying this is the case for every single. I'm not saying all people abusers are like this, are insecure, or all abusers are not like have themselves in order. It's different, but this guy, like, from when the story unraveled, like, this guy just seemed mad insecure, like,
Mm,
because, and the thing is, when I was watching it, it was like, it would be little things like, oh, so who texted you, like,
mm,
but at the time you might think it's not a big deal. So, your man or your woman asks you who texts you. Okay, yeah, so so text me.
mm,
But
mm.
after a while, it's like, bro, chill. Like,
Mm.
why? It just gets a
Yeah,
bit.
you sounded a bit controlling in a
Yeah,
way.
like,
It's
oh,
like,
like,
Yeah, I
oh,
agree.
you shouldn't text this person, or or this or
yeah,
that.
because
Mm.
there's saying who's that, like.
Mm,
But then after a while, in this particular drama, you kind of see the pattern, because before it went from, oh, who's texting you, oh, how come you're going out with the girls instead of spending time with me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not no expert, but something like that is like that's alarming. That's like
Yeah.
like sirens flashing.
Red
It's
flags,
like,
man.
yeah, it's like a red flag. You're thinking, what? Okay, I'm going out. Like, why are you, oh, why are you wearing that? It's like just mad like jumping insecurities.
I think, do you know what it is? I think that sometimes, like, I think to your point earlier when you mentioned sometimes there's not enough people speaking about their traumas or their toxic or abusive relationships. Sometimes I think it stems from perhaps not even knowing what these things look like, what these red flags look like,
Yeah.
and sometimes, especially within the Black community, a lot of us, sometimes our parents have been in abusive relationships, but we've normalized it. So it's like when you do see some of these red flags, we just overlook them because it's something that is so, perhaps sometimes so common within our societies,
Yeah.
that when you're either dating someone and it's like the controlling behavior or the coerciveness, we sometimes as people we don't have that many boundaries, and so when things like this start to happen and someone's like, oh, who called you, you just overlook it. And especially when you're dating, you're not gonna challenge the person because you're admiring them, right? And you're thinking with your heart and not your head. And that's what tends to happen. For me, that was my experience anyways at the beginning. You don't notice these red flags.
Yeah, like, but even with that though, because as some whether it's not right to kind of be proper like pestering your partner, like, just, oh, what are you doing? It's like, just give, like, it should be a thing where you're in this together, but you're also your own person as well. You have your own independence.
Yeah.
But then, when someone starts to be insecure with certain things, and sometimes it's, you kind of like, back to the the program. It was like, maybe, okay, this guy's insecure, but at that point it's maybe just, okay, he's insecure, but not abusive. But as the program progressed, you kind of say, okay, you're insecure, but this is, yeah, it's now abusive now. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, insecurities are insecurities. Don't get me wrong, but that's never, insecurity or being in love should never be like an excuse to start being violent to anyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we all have our insecurities, innit? But you just got to deal with them.
Yeah.
Like,
and sometimes you overlook it because you think, oh, they're just insecure, not knowing that insecurity leads to emotional abuse long term.
Yeah,
so
so it's like, what they have going on in their lives, who knows? In it, but me personally, like, when it comes to relationship, I always feel like, I'm not saying you can't grow with people, but I always feel like you should kind of definitely, like, before you enter anything, check what you're bringing to the relationship, in terms of, like, okay, cool. I mean, yeah, we'll have our insecurities, we have our baggage, we'll all have something. Don't get me wrong, but just check what things will be problematic that you need to kind of like sort out now, or what things were, okay, cool, this is not, it's a deal, but it's not a big deal to the point where it's going to be a detriment in this relationship or with this person. So that's certain things. I'm not an expert. I'm just saying, this is just my.
I think there's another similar, like, one with, like, workplace as well. So, like, even though it has nothing to do with relationships, but there's toxic, toxicity in workplaces. So people will abuse a certain person to get something, but they don't really show it in front of everyone. So they tend to go in a place where they're hiding or no one can see, and that can be a form of emotional manipulation as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it occurs in different types of relationship. It's not just in a romantic one. It can be through friends, family, workplace, work colleagues. And I think once you start to notice these things and you start to instill barriers or boundaries, it makes it that much easier to deal with. But I think it's about noticing what these things look like at first.
But that's the thing. Sometimes, we said earlier, like, when we're in something, we just shrug it off. We don't really think, oh, this is not really a minor. And sometimes it's the infatuation, it's the love. Like, yeah, this is fine. It's not a problem. But again, that isn't to say, even if someone's blinded by love, that doesn't mean they deserve any abuse. You know what I mean? It's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, love's one of those things where, like, it's like one of the ingredients of any, like, relationship, whether romantic or platonic, but it's not. It can't be the only thing, and it can't be the only thing you just use to, for toxic behavior. Do you know what I mean? You got, like often, you kind of see that a lot. But like with you, Afsa, what was like now? Obviously, you're out of your toxic relationship, but like if you were to kind of think back, like what were some of the like red flags that what are some of the things you now realize were red flags?
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned insecure because later, whilst I was in it, I remember certain things where my ex would ask me questions about who's messaging you or why do you have, at the time I had Facebook. This was like even before Instagram. Why do you have Facebook? And those were red flags, but I didn't notice them as red flags. This is when I was in the relationship at this point. And I remember talking to friends of mine, like my male friends especially. They're like, Afsa, that guy seems insecure. But
everyone has Facebook.
I just brushed it off and I just thought, oh, you guys don't understand. We've got a good thing going here. We're trying to build a family, this, that, right? But now in hindsight, when I look back to even when we started dating, he would question me, like I might be going to see him. And I remember like at one point I was going to see him outside where he was living at the time. I saw an old college mate, someone that was just like a associate at college. So we weren't close or nothing, but when you see someone that you recognize, you say hello and you greet them, etc. How you doing? He must have looked out of his window and saw me speaking to the guy. And when I eventually got up to his place, he was like, why were you speaking to that guy? And I said, I know him. He went to my college. He was like, but you was coming to see me? And I was like, oh, I'm here, aren't I? I was coming. I was on my way and I came across someone that I know. I'm not going to just ignore them. Like, if I know someone, I'm going to greet them. We're going to say, how you doing? Exchange, like, a few words, etc. And he made it into a big deal. And I just felt like this isn't a big deal. I brushed it off at the time. Sometimes I think, damn, I thought like he was really naive. How can you just ignore that red flag? But I was at that stage in my life where I wasn't really aware, like especially self-aware or just aware of the things that people ask or say to you. So that was one of my other red flags. And then slowly as we progressed dating, there was many other red flags, like trying to control what I wear. Prior to even that, trying to control, okay, even wearing makeup. I said, I don't want you to wear makeup. If you're wearing lip gloss or lipstick, don't kiss me.
Yeah, that's a bit mad.
Or what was it? There was another one where it was, I don't want you to I don't want you to wear makeup. I can't remember. There was just so much that he didn't want me to do, say, act. I don't want you to be friends with these people. Why are you friends with your male friends? And it was just like I had to now cut people out of my life to try and make him feel like I respect our relationship. So if I spoke to people that he wasn't keen on me speaking to him, it came across like I was disrespecting our relationship, and he used that as a tool to try and get at me. So yeah.
So when
I'm so sorry, guys.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll cut that. So when was the moment you realized that it was time to leave the relationship, in just in your own words?
To be fair, it took years. So that little bit that I've just told you, that was, let's say, a year in, or just under a year in. I left, let's say, 5-6 years later. So, in terms of me leaving now, it took a while, because, like I said earlier, sometimes you're in an emotionally abusive relationship and you don't know, because you're just so used to, sometimes that particular individual, like myself at the time, I lacked boundaries and I wasn't aware of what it was that I was sort of like.
So you lacked?
I lacked.
Oh, lacked.
Yeah. I lacked a lot of boundaries, and I was at a place in my life where I also was going through my own traumatic experiences separate from my ex, which made us sort of bond through trauma. And because we bonded through trauma and he was there for me, I felt like I had to be committed to that relationship. And because I felt like he's got me. So I became so codependent on him that's what made it so hard to leave to begin with. But as the years unfolded, I found myself even more codependent, but then realizing that the red flags were now becoming so apparent to me. So at the beginning, where he was like trying to ask me questions about why are you talking to that guy, this is where it started to be like, I don't want you to work. I want you to be a stay-at-home mum. Because at that point, we had a child together. So I don't want you to work. I want you to be a stay-at-home mum, using other women as examples to show that they're doing much more better than I. Even though in my eyes I felt like I was doing pretty well especially my career at that early stage of my life, but he used to try belittle me because he felt insecure at the stage that he was at in his life. And I found myself slowly becoming insecure, and I was never really an insecure person, especially when I met him. I was quite confident. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question.
No, you did. Definitely, I think you explained that really well, and obviously it makes you realize there is a lot of crazy people out there, and some of them have insecurities that they don't deal with before they enter a relationship. So
yeah.
But you see, one thing, a lot of it is alarming, but a lot of it, one thing that sticks out is, I don't know, this like the trauma bonding, because sometimes like when we meet people that maybe have gone through maybe something similar to what we've been through in terms of like trauma or just something or like a bad experience or a bad childhood. So again, you kind of form that click and you think, right, okay, because you've been through what I've been through, this should work because we come to that we have similarities, but sometimes it's not about. I'm not. There are some cases where like people meet through like they can they're kindred spirits in terms of they have the same experiences, but they've kind of used that to not rather than as a toxic thing, is a thing that's propelled that relationship. But some people, like in your case, it's like he just thought, okay, well she gets me, but no matter what, and again I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying this to be like this perfect person, but no matter what trauma you've been through or experience you've been through, you can't use that as an excuse for anything.
Yeah.
Like I I've we've been through like losing both parents. I'm not gonna start saying that, oh yeah, I'm like this because I lost both of my parents. After a while, it's just like you got to take some accountability.
Oh,
like
100%.
I get it. It's tough, and again, it's not about people feeling sorry for me, but you have to somehow as a not even as a man or just as a human being, just know when to kind of listen. Okay, well, I hear you. Like you've been through a lot, but this isn't the way in it. So either I don't know whether that's like through some sort of counseling or it's just something that will help. Do you know what I mean?
And I think sometimes it comes from like, I know you've told me about your story about losing your parents. Sometimes I think with people that have gone through trauma, depending on at what stage they were at in their lives, how old they were. So like sometimes when I look at certain people, depending on the stage of their life that they went through the trauma, it could be that they encountered it at very early childhood. They're sometimes still stuck in that childhood state. It's like that inner child is still hasn't healed. Those wounds haven't been dealt with. And I think for my ex, he suffered or experienced a lot of trauma growing up from childhood, which sort of like heightened his insecurities.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of it. I knew what it was that he'd experienced because, like when you're together, you'll talk about your childhood and whatnot. But I was again at that place where I was so naive that when he's telling me these things, I'm like, I feel sorry for him, but it's going in one ear and at the other. I'm not seeing the link.
Yeah.
But it's only like when I'm out of it now and I'm going through therapy and I'm actually trying to heal myself, I realized, damn, like the person that I was dealing with, yes, he was insecure, but it was so much more than that. This person was, it's like his childhood self was crying out for help. And because he too went through abandonment, he too was belittled as a child. Like, so he feels so insecure, and this sort of like exasperated his misogynistic mindset where he cannot be told by a woman what he should be doing, or the idea of a woman doing better than him sort of like makes him feel insecure.
Okay. Like,
yeah.
So it's like he's using what he's been through as he's kind of like taking it out on you, like because. But again, it's just all back to like not being healed from, like. But at any point during and again, this isn't to say this is your fault, but at any point during the relationship, did you kind of say to him, well, look, you're going through something, you need to kind of like get some help to help you deal with it. This isn't the way, sort of thing.
I did, but that was like later on like towards the end of the relationship, maybe a year before it started to deteriorate. Well, it was deteriorating before I started to actually have that level of awakening to leave. Because I was educating myself. Because at first he told me that I need healing, and he told me that I'm I need self-love. So at that point, when I started doing my own research on healing my own abandonment issues, I realized that's when the penny dropped, and I realized my ex also is insecure. And not only that, he's suffering from childhood trauma. So maybe he should go through counseling or therapy. And I suggested that because I was going through it. And he was like, no one can tell me what I don't know about myself. And those were his words. And I just think he wasn't ready. And sometimes that the person that's going through that, unless you're ready to start healing, that box doesn't want to be open because you're afraid of what's under there. He's afraid to sort of let all the things go up to the surface. And yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. But that I get not being ready and stuff, but that toxic isn't, there's not being ready and realize, okay, I'm not ready, but also no, I can't continue moving like this. But with him, it just seemed like I'm not ready and I'm going to keep moving like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that doesn't help.
I don't think he saw the link. I saw the link. When he was suffering from, like, I remember at that point, because I used to suffer from anxiety, especially like because of everything that I was going through, but I just didn't know why I was suffering from anxiety. So it's like he'll come to me and I'll jump. And it's like, Afsa, why are you so jumpy? Not realizing that I'm jumping because you basically trigger my spirit. Like, my spirit does not take to you. And at this point, I wasn't aware of it, but I knew that this person does not. He's like, he makes me jump. I feel uneasy. And so he'll belittle me and tell me, oh, Afsa, it's just anxiety. Everyone suffers from it. I've suffered it my whole life. And I thought, then why don't you seek therapy, right? There's a problem there, right? It's like nobody can tell me nothing I don't know about myself. And it's like, perhaps he doesn't see the link.
So do you think he wasn't self-aware that he was going through
the
issues himself?
He made it seem like he was self-aware. So he knew that this is how I feel. I'm depressed, I'm anxious. But I don't know whether he knew that it extends from childhood. But tell a lie, I feel like perhaps he did know and he just wasn't ready to speak to me about it. Because I remember at one point there was a time where I started to research about attachment styles, and I was keen to just understand what his attachment styles were, just because I felt like there's a big disconnect between our relationship. I felt like I was more like, love me, don't leave me, and he was just like, I care, but I don't care. He's like constantly in and out, in and out. So I remember telling him, do this test. He did it. He gave me the results, and it was what I expected it to be. It's like an avoidant attachment style. And then we started to speak, and he was like, I think I'm this way because growing up, my sisters just wouldn't rate me. My sisters wouldn't help me. They would see me on roads coming back from school, drive past me instead of like pick me up. And then I realized, wow, like there's even more, like that's him opening up. So at that point, because I was now becoming more self-aware, I saw the link and I was like, okay, this is why he's like very much, I don't need anyone, or he's just very much secluded within his own self, even within his family. Within our relationship, he was like, wants to be by himself. He didn't want that whole structure of a family.
But even with that though, like when you kind of had that heart to heart, did that kind of make you have more faith in the relationship, or at that point was it the emotional and physical abuse was still already kind of rife? Or
yeah, at that point the emotional abuse was there, but not as much, because at that point I was already detaching slowly. The physical abuse had already happened at that point about twice, but the third time where it was about to happen again, that's when I left. So me sort of like telling him to do this thing was me trying to think, okay, can we actually save this? Yeah. But hearing what he was saying and also seeing the results, and when I suggested therapy to him at that particular point, it was hard because it's not something that he would accept. And I remember thinking, when I was researching into the attachment styles, they said that someone who is either one end of the spectrum or the other, like I was more anxious, he was more avoidant. Someone who's anxious will need someone that's secure, and someone who's avoidant also needs someone that's secure. The two people, me and him, couldn't really be.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So at that point, I thought there is no saving this, because it's clear that this is what he is and this is what I am, and I can't force him. Knowing his character, knowing how it's been all these years, I cannot tell him what to do. So at that point, I was like, okay, this is just more motivation, even though it was hard because again, you're codependent. But it was more motivation to sort of figure I was just trying to do the work, that shadow work, to think, okay, what can I do to leave this? So it was the reading, the research, and I thought, yeah, eventually I guess I got there, but it was a process.
That must be tough though, because like on one end you're actually within that abusive state, and also you're also kind of like, okay, I don't wanna say it, I don't know if it sounds like plotting. No, I'm gonna say like that. I'll cut this out, but like kind of like I don't say plotting your escape. I don't know if that sounds, I want to cut that. So what I'm saying is, so at that moment it's like I don't even know how to wear this properly. Damn. I mean, what I'm trying to say is,
I'm kind of like gathering the strength to leave.
Yeah, gathering the strength to leave.
Yeah. At that point, it was towards the end. So at that point, I had already emotionally left.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So when I was going through within the relationship, when I was at when the emotional abuse was at its highest, I wasn't at that point where I was trying to leave. I wasn't even aware of it. So like, I'd say 2013, 2014, that's when I was at that's when it was at the highest, the emotional abuse. But at that point,
when you were trying to leave.
No, when I was trying to leave, that was 2017, 2018. So that was years later. But when it was at the highest, the emotional abuse, I was at uni. I had just given birth, so my son was like 1. That's when it was at the highest. That's when he's like, yeah, don't work, don't dress like this, don't do this, don't wear makeup. If I'm at my mum's house, he would like drive me to my mum's house, leave me there with our son, and he'll call me within an hour or two. Let's say I don't pick up, he'll call me again. Eventually when I'll answer, he starts asking me questions, and my mum's like, Afsa, why is he questioning you so much? Like, he saw where he left you. He's got your car, so it's not like you're going anywhere with a newborn baby. You know what I mean? So it was like, it wanted that control. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I think it was also trust issues. And a lot of trust issues came from his own experience, from his own like previous relationship.
Yeah, that sounds a bit mad, because but that's crazy, because usually when you think about these stories, often like you think the final straw is when like maybe it was just the person has just taken it too far. He's already taken it too far by the minute you start hitting someone. But then usually you think maybe it's like that last attack or whatever. But you're saying for you it's more of like not even at the height of that. It was more when you've kind of gradually left that in a sense. So there was a point where like your head's more like clear. Like you've checked out ages ago. Like, the moment you check out, and when that sort of like last straw or final attack happens, isn't when you just can leave. Because I think sometimes as well, when you're someone who hasn't been through that, you kind of just think, okay, right, you've hit me just that one time, that's it, I want to leave. But for some, in your case, was it more of like, no, like I've realized now, I'm done. Like,
yeah, I had many of those moments, I ain't gonna lie. So it didn't happen like overnight. Again, throughout the course of our relationship, he ended it sometimes, and then I was codependent, and I'll go back, and then we'll get back together. And other times I knew, this person isn't for me, and I'll end it. Like my second child, when I was pregnant with my second child, I ended the relationship. And actually, even before that, in 2014, we first split up, and it was like we got back together again after a year. And at that point, that's when I hadn't realized I was going through the emotional abuse before that. But I was going through the emotional abuse before that when I look back in hindsight, because that's when it was at the higher. It was at the highest when I was at uni and that. But when I started to sort of focus on my career and after university, that's when he sort of felt threatened, and it started to become worse. It's where he'll start to tell me, Asa, I want you to be a stay-at-home mum. Look at these other women that are looking after their children and not focusing on work. Why can't you just start your own business? Why do you want to work in the corporate world? And these times the man's not bringing nothing to the table, but he's asking me to.
Man's not even coming with a chair, like.
Trust. And so I'm like, this guy's telling me that I should do this. So I just thought, this man wants me to suffer, yeah. And I thought, imagine I didn't actually depend on myself. Imagine I actually wasn't bringing money in. Like, where would I be? Like, emotionally I was codependent on him, but financially I wasn't. Okay. So imagine I would have been messed up. Like, because as much as we think like we need money, right? Pays the bills, it does a lot of stuff. So I don't depend on him for nothing. Like, yes, emotionally, but emotionally you're not bringing nothing to the table anyway. So emotionally that cup is empty. But I don't want an empty. I don't want an empty bank account, right? So he's like, oh, why don't you do this? I'm like, especially me, like I hated the fact that this person is trying to tell me like I should do this when they're not be an example of what that looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that process was constantly on and off, on and off. I sometimes gathered the strength to leave. Other times I didn't. Where he would come back and then he'd apologize and I'd let him back because I love the man. And but later on, as the love started to go, I realized I don't love you anymore. This is just codependent.
Yeah.
I want to leave, but I'm struggling to leave. But I know I will leave one day. And I'll tell him this. I'll tell him that because before he knew I wanted to get married, he knew that I wanted to grow. And I remember him, I think he loved that. He loved the fact that I put him on this pedestal. And he fed off of that. Yeah, he fed off of that. And he'll tell me like one time he's like, oh, Afsa, because you want to be with me forever, right? And I was like, nah, like I don't see this thing lasting. I'm gonna clock out. I'm clocking out soon anyways. I'm like, I'm emotionally, I don't feel like I'm here. I'm kind of here just because we've got kids together, but I don't even feel, I'm like, yeah, I told him like sexually even I started to be less intimate and he realized this. And I think that hurt him. He's like, so you're so blunt and you're so rude. And I thought, you made me this way. Like, I wasn't this person when we met, but I've had to use my words as weapons because you've hurt me emotionally through your actions, but not only that, physically with your fists, right? So my words are the only kind of like tool that I have to use to hurt you. So it became that I started to become sort of toxic myself at times where I find myself talking to him in a way. But at that point, I didn't care because at that point, again, I was like, I'm trying to leave. So like when we're arguing now, that's when it started to get physical and he'll grab me and it was mad.
Like your clapback game is strong in it. It's strong in it. But that either way, however strong it is, that's never an excuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like what we said earlier, if I feel like he was trying to also, not only was he abusing you physically and emotionally, but he's trying to get that financial control as well. But it's like there's nothing to control, as you said, because there's no what are you bringing. Do you know what I mean? But it's like it sounds again, I'm not a psychologist, but I just thought it sounds very like
narcissist. He's a definitely textbook narcissistic. Yeah.
Like it's about me. I have this control, but it's like, so I'm saying with what I was saying to you when we spoke the other day. It's like I feel like some people have no like. There's nothing going on in their lives where they can have some sort of like power. So somehow they try to get that from elsewhere, and it's toxic because you shouldn't. No matter how insecure you are, how you trying to get power from abusing someone, and that's a man or woman. Like it's not. How's that productive? How's that gonna what's that gonna do for you? That's not. You're already creating emotional hurt, and even like probably PTSD like as well.
I suffered a lot of PTSD. I just remember like even when I was at uni, like my friends would call me and he wouldn't really want me to be on the phone. It's like, so eventually, because like I'm on the phone, like let's say I'm here, he's there, and I'm talking, and I just like he's listening to my conversation, but not in a way that, because like you could be nosy and just listening or intervene. I get involved in people's conversations or whatever. He's not getting involved because he's interested. He's not even getting involved. He's just listening in just to figure out what's being said. I'm like, you can hear what's being said because you can hear what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
But after a while, I just felt very uncomfortable because he started to ask me like, why is your friend always calling you? And I'm like, it's a friend. Like, I'm a stay-at-home mum at the time because I was on mat leave. Like, these are my friends. I can't bring them home because you don't want me to bring any of my friends home. And the place that we're staying at the time was his house. So it's like, although we were together, we were very much separate in that sense. So I can't bring my own friends home, whether it's girlfriends or my male friends. Yeah. And I tried to understand the male friends aspect, but the girlfriends, I was like, why can't I bring my friends? He's like, I don't really like people knowing where I live. So it's like, me talking to my friends is my only way of trying to build a relationship unless I'm going out with them. And because I had a newborn at the time, I wasn't really trying to go out like that. So he'll start to ask me who I'm talking to, and then I started to sort of like just not answer calls, and that made me then feel anxious when I'd get a call. Okay, he was like, why aren't you answering? And I'm like, I just don't want to talk to them at this point. Oh, are you trying to hide something? And he's not realizing that I'm becoming this way because when I'm on the phone, he has an issue. So I stop myself from actually answering the phone now. And now that I'm not answering the phone, he seems to think that there's a problem.
It's like, bro, what do you want?
I'm like, what?
Crazy,
there's no
man.
winning.
I don't understand.
You want, like, okay, don't answer the phone. It's like
there's no winning. And I'm like, and then after that, because he's seen the phone ring, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just be putting it on silent. So I'll just have my phone on silent. Why have you got your phone on silent? What are you trying to hide from me? This, that. And I'm like, you know what? Cool. I'll just put it on loud. Oh, no, I'll put it on vibrate. Why have you got your phone on vibrate? And I was like, there was no winning, and that was giving me PTSD.
Do you think he was kind of paranoid when you'd talk to someone, or if it's like a male friend, like that's when he gets to thinking, oh, is she going to run with him, or was he like that? Or
perhaps, maybe he felt like they're better than him or something. Who knows? Because he never even met my friends. My friends attempted to like my friend, especially my male friend, he was like, oh, Afsa, invite your it's my birthday, invite your man to my birthday, like I'm having a birthday dinner, just as a sign of respect, to just show that there's literally nothing going on between me and Afsa, we're just cool. He's like, I don't want to be chilling with your friends, Afsa, because he was much older than me. He just looked at us like we're youngers, so he's like, I don't want to be chilling with your youngers, and I was like, okay, but you're with me, right? You're 5 years older than me, so they're my age. So if that's how you feel, why did you get with a girl that's 5 years younger than you, right? But yeah, that started to just make me feel so. That gave me PTSD. Like, I stopped answering calls, and it ended up affecting my relationships with my friends because they're like, Asa's not answering the phone. Because if it's on silent, that means I missed calls from my mum as well, right? And my mum will constantly be like, Asa, I've been trying to call you, like, why don't you ever answer? And I was at that point where I just didn't know. It was making me feel anxious, but I wasn't aware of why I was feeling anxious. I knew that I don't feel happy. Like, I might be out and someone looks at me and then he makes me feel like it's me. Like, I'm like, if someone's looking at me, that is not my problem. That is not my fault. But I'll find a way to try and give him the confidence. I'll try and over-explain myself to make him feel secure. But it just became like that so much, and it was just so draining. Because I realized through that, which is the whole codependent, I'm doing this to you, trying to uplift you, trying to make you feel confident. But in the same way, you're bringing me down. Like, he didn't want me to be on socials. He's like, why are you on social? Because before it was Facebook, right? But at this point, I had now Instagram. Why are you on Instagram? On WhatsApp at the time, why do you have a picture up on WhatsApp?
What?
Like, why do you have a picture up on WhatsApp? So I was like, okay, cool. If you don't want to see my picture, I just deleted his number, so that if you have an issue with my picture, I'll delete your number so that you don't see my picture. So he thought that I was being secretive at that point. So he went on his sister's phone, looked at my number. He's like, After, you still got a picture. And I said, I deleted your number because you have an issue with my picture. So it's like, you're being secretive. This is why I don't trust you. I feel like you're seeing other people. I was like, what? I'm always at home with you. You dropped me. He was dropping me to uni. So it's like, he knew about whereabouts. So.
Yeah, I don't know. That's serious. You need some serious help, man. Like,
so yeah, it was like literally everything.
Like, no level of paranoia is cool, but when you're saying, okay, why is your phone on silent? Why is it on loud? Why have you got a picture up? What do you want?
Down to like even being pregnant. I was pregnant at one point, and I was wearing leggings because wearing like other types of clothes, leggings just feels more like comfortable for a pregnant lady. Because my jeans at that point were not fitting on my belly. Why are you wearing leggings? I was like, I'm pregnant. So you're trying to like attract men. I was like, me and my heavy pregnant self, like my belly's up to here. What man's gonna want to move to me? Like, I was like, what? Oh, and then through that, he'll just give me silent treatment for like a week or two. And like, we're living together and the man's not talking to me just because I went out in leggings, because I feel comfortable wearing leggings because I'm heavily pregnant with your child. And it was that. It was just constant. I felt like I was on the edge. I felt like there was no winning with this man. And at that point, I was unhappy. And I'll tell my mum, and mum's like, he's manipulative. But I just, mum always says everyone's manipulative.
See, mum's intuition.
I think mums, they got good intuitions as well.
Listen, they're sharper than Mystic Meg. I'm telling you, they know if a mum says no, I don't trust that. I feel like, why you haven't met them? But trust me, like over the years, I know with my mum, she's called it. At the time, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But she's
I think because mums have been through similar things with friends, and so they know straight away that this is a bad person. Don't follow this person. Yeah. And obviously, people might get offended or why, but just listen to them. They know what they're talking about.
Because once you're in it, whether that's like a friendship or relationship, once you're in that, you're like, oh no, mum, this person's cool, man. You'll see. It's fine. But trust me, she knows what she's talking about. But at that moment, you're just clouded by, oh nah, man, this is my people's, man. This is, like just trust me on this one. But they know in it, they know. You just think they're trying to be a hater, but trust me.
Yeah, I just felt like, mum, you just want me to be with him, and I was like, mum, I just ignore it. But then, you know what? Like, things started to, as much as he was very paranoid of what I was doing or what he thought I was doing, I remember like being at my mum's house and one time going to his house and just finding things out, and I realized this person is cheating on me. So he's paranoid, but he's out here doing his thing, right? But yeah, like it was just a lot. It was just everything just kept adding up. It just didn't add up. I mean, at first, why he was the way that he was, but later on, I think I realized that this person is insecure. This person, I remember he'd ask me like, Afsa, I don't know why you love me. And then that question in itself was so powerful because I felt like, you know that you are not worthy of being loved. So you kind of look at me like, why are you still here after how I treat you? So it's because he suffers from self-hate, or perhaps, he just feels insecure within himself. So he doesn't feel like he's worthy of being loved. And that's probably why he self-sabotages the relationship, and by being controlling and whatnot.
Yeah, like that's that. Like even just as much as this story is good to hear it from someone, like as in you've made it out. And I don't say it like that as if it's something, because it is a lot. It must be a lot to deal with and to go through. But like thankfully you've made it out, and not only that, thankfully, would you say you're at a place where like mentally you've got yourself back together?
Yeah, I am. It took a while, but I'm here, and I thank God, honestly, because I got to a place where I was suicidal, and before I'd left, it's like I was left, but I was still there. Like we weren't together, but we were still being intimate, etc. And I was still, because of that, he felt like he still had that level of power and control over me. And so at that point, I was just struggling to sort of call it quits, like to actually be like, you know what, I'm done. Just let me leave, like where he'll still come back. And that's when I felt that, when I actually realized I was in an emotionally abusive relationship, it wasn't freeing. It actually hurt me so much that I was like, I hated myself at one point, because I felt like, Afsa, how can you be so naive and dumb that you allowed yourself to go through this? So it was that denial first. And then once I accepted it, I was in a bad place. I just wanted to commit suicide. And because of that, I remember like talking to my sister, and I remember him laughing. And I felt like he enjoyed the fact that I was at this low place in my life. I've always been very positive, very like upbeat. Even if I'm going through stuff, I'm always like really like, no one will know. And I think because he saw me down where it's affecting work, and I remember at work I was about to be even made redundant at that particular time. I was at that place where I was just like lost and down. I couldn't get out of bed. So I'm losing my voice. And and I think he loved that. And and for me, when I saw him smile, that was like, Afsa, you can't quit. Yeah, you have to get back up. And that's, for me, that was like the motivation to be like, I'm not gonna let this man win. I'm not gonna let him win. And that was when I had that awakening of just, okay, firstly, I'm Muslim, so I was like, I want to focus. I remember it was like similar time like now, Ramadan, I was fasting, and I thought, let me focus firstly on God. And I started praying, I started fasting, and that led me to just thinking, you know what, I have to leave this. So I remember telling him, I'm done. And then I remember his response at the time was like, that pussy still mine though. And I was just like, I just cut the phone, and then it was that. And then he tried to, after ending it, he started to become even more violent. I think he realized that Afsa's now taking control. He's trying to break into my house. And I was just like, yeah, got the police involved and whatnot. And that's when I was like, yeah, I need to get out. Like, I need to make sure that there's boundaries in place. This person is not going to have access to me anymore. And it took a while. And then I went through therapy. I went through counseling. And I'm here now. And I feel so blessed. I feel like I needed to go through that to find myself. And I needed to go that to recenter myself. And yeah. And I feel like I'm in a much better place than I was back then. Oh, thank God.
That's a great testimony.
It's great. I feel
great
like
testimony.
Like, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It feels like testimony, and like that's what essentially it's about. Like again, like unfortunately, you know, the people who have gone through this and haven't made it. Like, even like back to what was when we started this earlier about the program was actually based on a true story.
Oh yeah. My mum actually told me to watch that. Yeah, and I still ain't watched it.
And like I don't know what
I need to watch it.
But I'm not spoiling it. But she died. She passed away in it. You know, they had a daughter. I think the daughter even I think she witnessed it, but I think she was quite young, so I don't know if she knew what was going. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. It's very sad. But you know, as much as it's been a like I said, it's been a testimony, but at the same time, these things are not easy, man. So like, just gotta give you your flowers and just keep doing what you're doing with you know, your YouTube and your kind of said and your counseling. So yeah, just to like as we're wrapping up, just like plug yourself in terms of what you're doing, what you do, where people can find you.
Okay, so like through going through all that, I just saw it as, you know what, I need to help other women that have gone through anything traumatizing, and that doesn't mean that it's a relationship. It could be like a family traumatizing events, childhood trauma. So I do emotional wellness coaching for anyone that's going through any tough time during their lives, right? Because we all go through different transitions throughout the course of our lives. So I'm currently doing that. And so you can find me on Afsa_Rosette on Instagram or my website, afsarosette.com. I'm also on Twitter, Afsa Rosette. But yeah, I think for me, that's how I said I needed to go through this. And I look back at it and I think, you know what could I learn from that experience? And what I learned was finding me and making sure that you don't get lost in relationships. What you look for in others is already within yourself. And I think because I was at that place where before meeting my ex, I was going through my own trauma, and he was going through his own trauma. We bonded through trauma. But I think when you're dating or speaking to someone, be very mindful, pay attention, and also understand that this person isn't there to complete you. First, you have to complete yourself. And so, yeah, when dating, just make sure that you're whole within you first, to make sure that you don't find yourself in another, again, trauma bond relationship.
Definitely. And that's for men and women, and even just non-romantic,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think that's some good words to close things off. If I'm being honest. But it's been lovely. Thank you once again.
Thanks for having me.
I know it's tough, even though like you talk about it quite frequently, but I know it can be still be triggering. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for everyone that's been listening. It's a wrap, but you can find us on Thinking Out Loud Pod _. Subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. But other than that, that's a wrap from us.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yeah, I think we went over time a bit, but you know what happens, man. You know, you just get carried away.
I thought so. I was like, how long?
I hope this thing was recording, though.
Imagine it wasn't.